The third lesson in Unit 2 will be covering Google's presentation. Google Presentation would be the equivalent of Microsoft's PowerPoint or Apple's Keynote. It's presentation software that enables you to create anywhere from a 1 to as many number of slide presentation you would need for whatever purpose you would need it for. Just like my other Google tools, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Drive pull menu within my Google browser, taking me to my Google dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Create button, where my pull menu gives us the different options, and we're just going to go down to the next tool available, which is Presentation. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And as soon as Google Presentation opens up, it wants you to go ahead and choose a theme. As I scroll down, there's lots of different themes to choose from. But I've heard from several people on several different occasions when talking about what are the most effective presentation themes to convey your message. I've heard over and over that a simple white background and black letters is the most effective title. Whether that's true or not, I haven't really dug too deep into that or into presentation fundamentals, but I'm going to go ahead and just choose Simple Light. You can always change a theme later on if you decide that that's not flashy enough. You're not committed to just one theme. You can go ahead and change that at any time. After I've chosen the theme, and you can notice that the border or the perimeter will be highlighted with a light blue line, letting you know which theme you've chosen. I'm going to go down to the bottom and press OK. My theme is there, white, text areas within it as well, ready to go ahead and start adding. But let's take a look at the layout before we get started. Just like with Google Documents, in the upper left-hand corner, it is untitled. And just like with a Google document, I think the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and give this presentation a title. And I'm going to go ahead and just name it Test Presentation. When the name is good, I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And then the file name in the upper left-hand corner now reflects the name we've chosen. And just like with all of the Google documents or Google tools, you can click this at any time to change the title later. Well, within the browser, we've got our internal pull menus again. And there's several different choices now that we're working with a different piece of software, a different web tool here. So they've got Slide, Arrange, and a few other pull menus that are specifically for the Google presentation software, which we'll be looking at some of these that you'll find yourself using the most. Below the pull menus, we also have other very quick tools allowing us to change or choose different tools that we'll be needing access to a little bit quicker rather than going to the pull menus. On the very left-hand side, starting at the number 1 right up here, this is going to be your slide viewer. And as you can see right now, there is only one slide in our viewer, the default slide that comes with creating the presentation. But this is a good way to keep track of what slide you're working on, where it is you're going, and where it is that you're starting from. So using the pull menus, the tools, the slide viewer, and then of course the main slide that you'll be working on. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at how we can change the default layout into a slide perhaps that you're looking to use as a first slide or a title slide. To change or rearrange or just give yourself some more options, you're going to want to go up to the Layout pull menu with the arrow pointing down, and that gives us lots of different choices here. Once again, just like with Google Documents, Google Presentation doesn't have overwhelming options. It's very usable, very manageable. So this is why I like to use Google Presentation with my students. I like to use Google Presentation for myself as well. Well, right now, the checkbox or the check mark shows that we're working with the default title slide. Below that, we have the title and body, and I'm going to go ahead and click on these, and we'll watch the primary slide in the middle change. Now we've got the layout for the title and body, title going on top up here, and then the body of the slide below that. Our next option would be title in 2 columns, title at the very top, column 1 for text information, column 2 for text information. The next layout option is title only, and this is a good option for when you're bringing in images or going to use a graphic of some sort. Title at the very top, and lots of blank canvas area. I like to call it blank canvas area for you to create on, whether you're adding images or anything else you need to add there. Below that is caption, and this might be a great slide for a picture. Captions at the very bottom, small text by default. And the last slide option we've got is completely blank. If you just want to start with from scratch and build from the slide up. These options are also available under the slide pull menu down to the change the layout. And it's also again going to reflect which slide I currently have. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my original, the title and the body. These text areas within the slide we've got here are movable. I'm going to go ahead and start to move the slides around to reflect the way that I would like to build the slide. You notice that they've got some guidelines, that's the red line that's showing up in the middle, to show me that my text area is currently centered. And when I move off to the left or to the right, it's going to tell me that it is no longer centered. And this is how I'm going to keep things pretty well centered. That way I'm feeling like it's a good presentation building together. I like to keep things as centered as possible. You'll also notice guidelines on the very left-hand side or the very right-hand side and in the middle as well. Right now I've got my subtitle box square in the middle. The guidelines right there in the middle tell me that it's all centered up. You can also use the arrow keys to move things around one at a time. These guidelines and grids are also available under the View pull menu. I'm going to go down to Snap to and over to Grids and Guidelines. So this will allow you to snap to a grid, so the text areas or the images you bring in or whatever objects you bring in here will snap to a grid. I personally prefer to use the guidelines. I'm a very visual person. I like to see those red lines telling me when I'm centered directly in the middle of the slide. And then as you start to add objects, images, pictures, whatever you start to add in there, they start to then work with each other. For example, if I were to go up to Insert and add a text box, I'm going to add another text area to this slide. Just as an example, you'll notice that my pointers now become a crosshairs as a plus right there in the middle rather than our traditional arrow pointer. I'm just going to pull and create a text area. And this text area is now going to start to line up with the different objects in there. Right now you can see that my third text area at the bottom is lining up with my first and second text area on the left, or it'll be lining up on the right there. And that just allows you to really line things up, really keep everything looking very tight and organized within the presentation. Well, that was just an example. I really don't want to use this text area. So I'm going to, with it highlighted, I can notice that it's highlighted because all of the handles, the little boxes that I refer to as handles, are highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and just press delete to get rid of that. And I think it's time to go ahead and start adding some text to our presentation here. I'm going to bring my text area, title area at the top there. and begin to just type in some text. You'll notice that my fonts below are a little bit lighter. They're just able to, it's just created so you can put your name, just something that's not going to be as outgoing as the... You're not limited to the default settings as far as text presentation goes at all. What I'm going to do is go ahead and in my text area below, I'm going to go and highlight the text that I've already created. And when you're working with text, you'll notice at the upper right-hand side within the browser, it becomes our text tools that we're used to, the exact same ones we see in Google Documents. So I can go ahead and change the font size, any sizes I want. It's giving me the 6 to 96, but I'm always able to, whoops, that's actually a good teachable moment to take a look and see when you've no longer highlighted the text areas, all of those text features go away. So in order to have the different fonts, sizes, colors, styles, you need to actually have a text area highlighted. And by highlighting the text, I can go ahead and start to work with that. I'm going to give it a very unique number. Let's go ahead and do 47. We can just type those in. And then the text reflects our new changes. Bold, italic, underline. Change the text color. You can even change the background color a bit. Give the background a color there as well. It's more of a highlighted. Oh, you really can't see it very well when it's a light gray. So let me try something else. There we go. I unfortunately have shown my kids this particular feature, and when they see that they can highlight the background, they're all about making just some really crazy texts, and I tend not to show them anymore, which they sometimes discover on their own, but I just leave that one alone. If you do find your kids doing some really crazy backgrounds, all you need to do is at the very top choose transparent so it becomes invisible again. And those are the limits of our choices being able to change. Just like any traditional word processing program, these are the features that we can create for our text. We do have our bullet points and list points here as well, indentations, and the other word processing tools that we're used to. Well, now that I've got my first slide ready, I've got my title there, and I've got an area giving myself credit for this presentation. It's time to go ahead and take a look at how we make other slides for us to continue our presentation on. Above the slide viewer in the left-hand side, just below the File pull menu, we've got this plus and a little arrow next to it. And the plus is just going to go ahead and add a slide immediately. And it'll just add whatever really is next in line as far as what Google believes you would want for your presentation. So by default, Google gave me a title slide to begin my presentation, and then it went ahead and gave me a title and body slide next to that. Well, I rarely find myself ever using that particular slide, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this slide. Number 2 is highlighted, light blue line around the perimeter telling me that that's the one I'm working with. I'm going to press delete. And the slide goes away. I would rather go ahead and click right next to that plus sign, which is also a part of the new slide, but it's going to allow me to choose which layout I would like. With my kids, I find myself using title and 2 columns more often than not. And the reason I find myself using that is, let me go ahead and click and create the slide. With my presentations or with my assignments that I have with my kids, I assign them or I put within the design rubric that they need to have a title area, and the title area would be the title text area at the top, a text area for information, which would be this first text box below on the left-hand side, and I also make sure that they have a place for an image, a picture to help support what it is they're talking about. That is what this text area would be here. It's more of a visual reminder that this is where they're going to need to put a picture later on, whether it's an image they've created or a graphic that they've copied and pasted, or even a graph that maybe they've made in another Google tool. What I'm going to do now is just start to add little reminders. And these little reminders right here just remind my kids that there's going to be a title for each slide, a text area of information for each slide, and then an area for an image to help support whatever the presentation is on. Often I'll have my kids actually make up this slide with me where they type in just these generic titles. And once they've created this very first slide, rather than having create over and over and over, under the file, under the slide pull menu, you can actually duplicate that slide over and over and over again. That way you can have them create one slide as sort of a template that you've decided that your students may want to use as their layout, and then they can just duplicate that slide over and over and over until they have enough, or they have the number of slides that you've required. And you can see on the slide viewer on the left-hand slide, I am going through the different slides. And now literally they have a blueprint for what it is that you've asked them to do. The presentation is not going to be the hard part. It's going to be filling in the information for whatever topic that they're creating a presentation on. In part 2 of Google Presentation, we're going to take a look at some different ways that you're able to make your presentation stand out from the rest, really add some fun features to make your presentation fun to create and fun to look at as well.